That was Simple Etude number 6 by Leo Brouwer, which is one of the audition pieces for the 2012 Guitar All-State. It's a pretty straightforward piece once you have the chord shapes worked out for the left hand. The right hand uses a repeating arpeggio pattern, and it's all indicated in the score, so make sure you take a close look at both the right and left hand fingerings. There's one optional fingering that I use that you could decide to use if you want, which is in measure 5 and 6. Well, actually, starting in measure 5, it's suggested that you use 3, 4, 2, which works fine, and then shift it down and then move on to 1 and 2 at the 2nd fret. But I prefer to go to 1, 3, 2, shift that down, and then shift 1 and 2 down. Whichever fingering you decide to do will work out fine. The first tricky shift comes in the 5th line, leading into that line out of the end of the 4th line. We're moving to this basically a G-based chord here. It's kind of a trick to get to unless you move your fingers independently. In other words, get the left hand fingers there in the order that the right hand demands. So the very first finger to arrive is the bass note, 2nd finger, then 4th finger, and then finally the E with the 1st finger. So if you do that in that order instead of trying to get them all done at once, that can help. And then the other somewhat tricky shift comes leading into the 2nd line. Sorry, leading into the 2nd to last line. And it's not too hard of a shift, but you could put a slight retard, slowing down just a little bit, leading into that line, and I think it makes a nice musical idea, and it gives you just a little bit of a leeway to make that shift. And that's about it for Etude number 6 by Leo Brouwer. So that was Etude number 11 by Matteo Carcassi, which is another one of the audition pieces for the 2012 Guitar All-State. This piece has some tricky moments in it. We're constantly going back and forth between scale stepwise melodic ideas and then arpeggio ideas, usually in the bass strings or part of the chord shape. You'll just have to kind of follow the fingerings carefully to be able to navigate through this and take your time with it. Down at the very end of the piece, the 2nd to last line, last measure, is probably the most difficult part, where it moves to different keys there with a lot of flats in them. And this part's going to take a bit of work to get comfortable with the shifts. There's several bar indications that I think are very important that you follow. You have a half bar, which really is actually, it's indicated as a half bar with the C with a slash through it, but it really ends up being a little more than a half bar because you've got to be able to cover 5 strings. And then it immediately shifts to a bar at the 3rd fret and stays there, even though this chord shape right here is a little awkward with your 3rd finger up on the 6th fret. Then finally a shift back down to a bar at the 1st fret, and then you're finally done with that kind of tricky part with those bars. Other than that, just careful study of the fingerings, both with the right and left hand, and you should be able to navigate through this piece pretty well. Good luck.